She was thrown out of her home by her billionaire husband on a rainy night in Charleston because he believed she had betrayed him. That storm didn't just wash away Naomi Ellis's dignity. It also carried off the faith of a mother who was already carrying life inside her. Ethan Ward lost her, long before he ever knew she was carrying 2 pieces of his own heart. The sky above Charleston thundered as the rain poured down. On the cold marble steps, Naomi stood still, her hair soaked, her dress clinging to her skin, her breath trembling. The heavy wooden door closed behind her, the sound echoing like a verdict. Inside, a man bathed in golden light stared through the glass, his face as cold as the rain outside. Naomi didn't speak. She simply placed a trembling hand over her stomach and walked away. Out there, the city lights still glowed, but inside her, everything had gone dark. Sometimes people don't break because of loss. They break because the person they loved most was the one who pushed them into the storm. If you've ever walked through a storm like hers, stay. This story might just warm the part of your heart you thought had turned to stone. But before the storm, there was peace. Before that night, she was still his everything. The morning light filtered through soft linen curtains. Naomi folded Ethan's shirts one by one, her movements slow, tender, familiar. She hummed quietly, a tune she never remembered the words to. Ethan watched her from the bed, coffee in hand, wearing the quiet smile of a man who believed he had everything. "Naomi," he said, "you don't have to do that. We have people." She looked up and smiled. "Your people fold like they're angry at the fabric. I fold because I love you." Her laughter filled the room, light as morning air. Ethan felt something inside him settle, a rare stillness. For a moment, the world made sense. Success, a beautiful home, a wife who grounded him. But as he buttoned his shirt, he said almost absently, "You know, sometimes I think I can't really trust anyone, except myself." Naomi turned, her expression softening. "You can trust me," she said. He kissed her forehead before leaving for the office, never realizing that her smile lingered longer than it should have, as if she sensed that this peace, this ordinary morning, was the last one they would ever share. Ethan Ward lived in a world made of glass towers and numbers, tech empire, private jets, meetings scheduled down to the minute. Everything he touched turned to profit. Everything except peace. Naomi came from somewhere else entirely. A modest upbringing, a scholarship, years spent helping women rebuild after violence and loss. She wore simplicity like armor and believed kindness still mattered. Their marriage was a contradiction, his life measured in millions, hers in moments. Yet, she was the only person who saw Ethan as more than a brand or a bank account. She saw the boy beneath the empire. At charity events, people whispered. They called her lucky. They called him reckless for marrying beneath his class. But Naomi never cared for their world, and Ethan, at least for a while, believed love could bridge the distance between them. He didn't realize that the same gap, the one that drew them together, would soon become the crack that destroyed everything. At noon, Ethan's assistant entered his glass office carrying a cream envelope. "No sender," she said, placing it on his desk. It was marked confidential. Inside were photographs. Naomi sitting across from a man at a cafe. The angle made it look intimate, his hand reaching toward hers. Another shot, her laughing in a park, the man beside her. The final image, outside a hotel, too close, too familiar. A single note accompanied them. "Your wife isn't who you think she is." Ethan's pulse quickened. His jaw tightened. He tried to breathe, but the room felt smaller, the air thinner. Travis Cole, his partner, entered moments later, noticing the photos. "Jesus," Travis muttered. "You sure you know who you married?" Ethan didn't answer. The words, the images, the insinuation. They began to root in his mind, silent but poisonous. By the time Naomi called that afternoon, he didn't pick up. He was already lost in the stories his fear had started to write for him. That night, the house was quiet. Naomi sat by the window reading when Ethan entered, holding the envelope. His eyes were colder than she'd ever seen. "Who is he?" he asked. She blinked, confused. Who? The man in these photos. Don't lie to me. He threw them onto the coffee table. Naomi picked them up slowly, her hands trembling. That's Daniel from Women Rise. We're working on the shelter expansion. You've met him. Ethan's silence was louder than accusation. She looked at him, searching his face. Ethan, these pictures, someone's twisting them. Please. But the logic in her voice only fueled his anger. He turned away, pacing. You really expect me to believe that? Naomi felt something close inside her chest. She didn't cry. She simply said, If you don't know me by now, maybe you never did. And with that, the first crack in their marriage became a fracture neither could see yet, but both could feel. The lawyer's voice echoed through the study. Mr. Ward, if you sign here, it's final. Ethan's pen hovered, his hand trembling, but pride steadied it. Naomi stood a few feet away, rainwater dripping from her umbrella, her voice breaking. Ethan, please, look at me. You know me. I would never. He didn't look up. All he said was, I can't be made a fool, Naomi. Thunder cracked outside. The rain grew heavier, hammering the windows like applause for the end of something sacred. Naomi's tears mixed with it. Then you've already lost more than you know, she whispered. The pen hit the paper. The sound was final, cruel. Minutes later, she stepped out of Magnolia Estate, past the iron gates where roses once bloomed. The downpour soaked her through as she wrapped her coat tighter. Her palm pressed against her stomach, instinctive, protective. Behind her, the mansion glowed gold and hollow. Ahead, only darkness. The storm didn't cleanse him of guilt. It baptized her in strength. Naomi walked through empty Charleston streets, heels sinking into puddles, thunder chasing her shadow. Each breath burned from cold and betrayal. A taxi slowed beside her, wipers beating a frantic rhythm. The driver, a stranger with kind eyes, rolled down the window. Ma'am, you shouldn't be out here. Where are you headed? She hesitated, voice thin from exhaustion. Anywhere that isn't here. The door opened. Warm air met freezing rain. Naomi slid into the back seat, shivering, clutching her coat. The city lights blurred through the wet glass, turning everything into streaks of gold and sorrow. She looked down, hand resting on her stomach. Her whisper barely filled the space. We'll be okay. Both of you. I promise. The driver glanced at her through the mirror, understanding more than he said. Outside, the storm softened, as if the sky itself pitied her. The cab stopped at Hope Haven Shelter. The sign flickered under the rain, letters half lit but still standing. Gloria Mitchell, a sturdy woman with gentle authority, opened the door. You're soaked, honey. Come in. Naomi stepped inside, dripping water onto the tile. The air smelled of soap, coffee, and survival. Bunk beds lined the small room. 5 women shared the space, each with their own silence. That night, Naomi lay awake on a narrow cot. Rain tapped the window like memory. Her clothes were damp, her body aching, but her heart refused to break. She pressed her palm against her stomach again. There was life there, purpose, a reason to keep breathing. Gloria passed by, whispering softly, You'll get through this. You're stronger than you think. Naomi nodded in the dark. Maybe she wasn't sure of much anymore, but she believed that. Days turned into weeks. Naomi found small jobs cleaning, sewing, helping wherever she could. Then one morning, while sweeping the hallway, the world tilted. Her knees gave out. When she woke, she was in a clinic. A doctor stood beside her bed, smiling gently. Congratulations, he said. You're pregnant. She stared at him, breathless. I already knew. He shook his head. Then you don't know the rest. You're carrying twins. Her lips parted, a quiet gasp escaping. 2 heartbeats, 2 lives. Tears slid down her face, not of fear, but fierce devotion. She placed both hands on her belly, whispering through a smile, Micah and Noah, my boys. The doctor looked away, giving her privacy for that sacred moment. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. Naomi took it as a sign. Her storm wasn't over, but now she had 2 reasons to survive it. Naomi worked wherever she could. A textile factory took her in, 12-hour shifts, low pay, no questions asked. Machines roared. Fabric dust filled her lungs. Her hands blistered and healed, blistered again. She learned to hide her growing belly under oversized shirts. During breaks, she drank water instead of eating, saving every cent for the day her sons would come. The other women, mostly immigrants, watched her quietly. They slipped her extra food, covered for her when nausea hit. No one asked about her past. They didn't need to. Pain recognizes pain. At night, Naomi walked back to the shelter, body trembling from exhaustion. Yet, when she lay down, she whispered the same promise to the life inside her. "I'll build a home for you, maybe not grand, but full of love." And somehow, in that whisper, she began to believe it. The hospital lights flickered faintly, old bulbs humming against the silence. Naomi clutched the bed rails, her body trembling through pain and exhaustion. No one held her hand. No family waited outside. Her cries mixed with the cries of life, 2 of them. The nurse smiled softly. Twins. 2 healthy boys. Naomi sobbed, not from pain but from awe. The nurse placed them on her chest. Tiny, warm, real. They fit against her as if they had always belonged there. She traced their faces with shaking fingers. "Micah," she whispered. "Noah." 2 names that meant faith and rest. Rain tapped faintly against the window, gentle now, not cruel. Naomi looked at her sons, her voice a promise sealed in tears. "I swear, you will never feel abandoned. Not for a second. No matter who left us, I never will." The nurse tucked a blanket around them. Naomi smiled through her tears, realizing this was what survival felt like. Not triumph, but tenderness that refused to die. The years blurred into motion. Naomi studied by night and worked by day. The sound of typing keys replaced lullabies. She balanced a laptop on one knee, Micah asleep against her shoulder, Noah curled in a blanket beside her. One hand typed essays, the other held her child. Bills stacked on the counter, the fridge hummed with almost nothing inside. She learned to make one meal stretch into 3. Still, laughter lived in that small apartment. The boys' giggles filled spaces where money could not. Naomi whispered prayers over overdue rent, then read bedtime stories about courage. Every exam passed, every shift survived, was a brick in the home she was building with Will alone. When exhaustion hit hardest, she reminded herself, "I'm not tired, I'm needed." And somehow that kept her standing. Micah grew fast, bright eyes, boundless energy. He turned toys into numbers, questions into patterns. At 7, he solved puzzles older kids couldn't. Noah was different, quiet, thoughtful. He carried a small notebook everywhere, writing stories about families who broke apart and found their way back. Naomi saw their father in both of them, Micah's logic, Noah's silence. Ethan's shadows lived in their features, though neither boy knew his name. They shared a bond that made loneliness impossible. When Naomi came home late from work, they waited by the door, small hands holding 2 cups of cocoa. "Welcome home, Mama." Her heart swelled with pride and ache. They were her reason, her mirror, her redemption. 2 halves of the man she once loved, and the best parts of herself. Each night, after dishes and homework, Naomi told her sons a story before bed. "Once," she began, "there was a king who loved his queen, but a wicked whisper told him she'd betrayed him, and the king, blinded by pride, sent her away." Micah frowned. "Did she really betray him?" "No," Naomi said softly. "She was innocent, but he believed the lie." "What happened to her?" Noah asked. "She left the castle with 2 tiny treasures the king didn't know he had, and she raised them to be kind, so they'd never repeat his mistake." The boys listened, wide-eyed. It was just a bedtime story to them, but to Naomi, it was confession disguised as myth, a truth she couldn't yet bear to tell. When they slept, she sat in the dark, wondering if the king ever learned the truth, and if forgiveness was something that could be taught. Miles away, in the mansion on Magnolia Drive, Ethan Ward sat in silence. The empire he'd built thrived without joy. He poured another drink, staring at the empty chair across the table, she hers. The house was spotless, lifeless, a museum of regret. He'd hired investigators for years. They found nothing. No proof, no lover, no trace of Naomi at all. Each discovery of her innocence only deepened the wound. He had wealth, reputation, power, but no peace. His mother called once, asked if he was still proud of what he'd done. He said nothing, because pride had cost him everything. Some nights he thought he heard her laugh, faint, carried by memory. He would close his eyes, and for a moment the mansion didn't feel so cold, just empty. Diane Ward arrived without calling. The sound of her heels echoed through the marble hallway. Ethan looked up from his drink as she entered the study. 18 years, Ethan, she said. You never found proof, did you? He stared at her, silent. The fire behind him crackled but gave no warmth. She didn't cheat, Diane continued. You know that now. You've known it for years. He tightened his jaw. It's not that simple. It is, she said. You were too proud to admit you were wrong, and now it's too late. The words hit like a confession he never made aloud. Ethan's eyes dropped to the envelope of photos still locked in his drawer. He couldn't even throw them away. When Diane left, she paused at the door. Maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself, she said. But when the door closed, he whispered into the empty air, I don't know how. The empire ran itself now. Board meetings, mergers, investments. Ethan watched them all from a distance, a ghost haunting his own success. That evening, he sat in the living room where Naomi once read. Her chair remained untouched. He played an old video stored on his phone, Naomi laughing at something small, a sound brighter than any applause he had ever earned. He whispered to the screen, I bought everything the world could offer, but I lost the only person who made it worth owning. Outside, rain began again, faint but steady. He poured another drink and let it sit untouched. In the reflection of the glass, he thought he saw her smile once more. Not forgiveness, just memory. 18 years passed quietly. Naomi's world was color and noise. Laughter, homework, scraped knees, morning rushes, and late-night talks. Micah thrived in numbers. Noah thrived in words. They filled her life with light and exhaustion. Ethan's world was the opposite. Meetings blurred into years. The mansion aged without changing. Birthdays came and went with no one to celebrate. Time moved differently for them. For Naomi, every day was proof of endurance. For Ethan, every day was a sentence served in silence. Sometimes, when the same rain fell on Charleston, Naomi would stop and look out the window, feeling a weight she couldn't name. And miles away, Ethan would do the same, wondering if somewhere, someone still thought of him. The gym echoed with cheers. Micah and Noah played side by side, the sound of sneakers and laughter filling the court. Then it happened. Noah stumbled, hand to his chest, his face drained of color. Before Micah could reach him, Noah collapsed. "Call 911!" Naomi screamed from the bleachers. She ran to him, her knees hitting the floor. His pulse fluttered beneath her trembling hands, then stopped. Time froze. The whistle, the shouting, the echo, all disappeared. Paramedics rushed in. Naomi clung to his hand, refusing to let go. "Stay with me, baby. Please, stay." When the ambulance doors closed, Micah stood in the rain outside the gym, watching red lights disappear into the distance. The same rain that once took everything from his mother now threatened to take her world again. Hospital lights hummed, the same sterile glow as the night Micah and Noah were born. Naomi sat in a chair outside the ICU, hands clasped, eyes empty from too many tears. The doctor approached quietly. "Mrs. Ellis," he began, "your son's heart condition is genetic. He'll need a stem cell donor. His brother, too." Her throat tightened. "Both of them?" He nodded. "It's inherited. We've traced it. They'll need a direct blood relative, preferably their father. Naomi stared at him, stunned. Father. The word she'd buried for 18 years rose like a ghost she never wanted to face again. The doctor placed a form on her lap. We can begin the search as soon as you're ready. She looked at her reflection in the glass and for the first time in years whispered his name. Ethan Ward. Outside the window, thunder rolled across Charleston, as if the past itself had just awakened. Night fell heavy over Charleston. The hospital lights dimmed, machines humming a rhythm that felt too close to grief. Naomi sat alone in the waiting room, her phone glowing in her palm. The name Ethan Ward sat on the screen, unchanged after 18 years. She hadn't deleted it. She never could. Her hands shook. If I call, she whispered, he'll know everything. If I don't, my sons might die. Tears blurred the numbers. She thought of Micah's quiet bravery, Noah's stories, and the way both had his eyes. Her thumb hovered, then pressed. The line rang once, twice. Her breath hitched on the third. When the click came, she couldn't breathe. A voice, familiar, older, colder, answered. Hello? Her heart broke in silence before she found the words. Ethan, it's me. The air shifted, heavy with 18 years of what was never said. Ethan froze. The voice he thought he'd never hear again echoed through the receiver, fragile, trembling. Naomi? Her breath shook. You have 2 sons. They're yours, and they're dying. The world stopped moving. The glass in his hand fell, shattering against the floor. He gripped the phone tighter, as if holding it could stop the years from collapsing between them. What are you talking about? His voice cracked. They need a stem cell donor, Naomi said. The doctor said it has to be you. He sank into the nearest chair, the weight of her words crushing his chest. After a long silence, he whispered, Where are you? Charleston General. He stood, already reaching for his keys. I'm coming. When Ethan arrived, dawn was breaking. The sterile air smelled of antiseptic and rain. Naomi waited near the ICU doors, arms folded, eyes tired but unyielding. For a moment, they just stared. 18 years unraveled in silence. She looked different, stronger, distant, unbreakable. He spoke first, voice raw. I didn't know. Her reply was sharp but calm. You never asked. Through the glass, Ethan saw 2 boys lying in separate hospital beds. Tubes, monitors, faint beeping. 2 versions of what could have been his life. He moved closer to the window, his reflection overlapping with theirs. Guilt washed over him, thick and suffocating. They look like you, he said. Naomi's eyes softened just enough for pain to show. No, Ethan. They look like the man I once believed you were. Hours later, in the doctor's office, the news was final. Ethan was a perfect match. The transplant could save them both, but it wasn't without risk. Mr. Ward, Dr. Reeves warned, your immune system may not recover. This could kill you. Ethan didn't flinch. He looked through the glass at the ICU. 2 boys, his sons, his blood. If that's the price, he said quietly, I'll pay it. Naomi turned away, tears streaking her face. Ethan, don't. He shook his head. No more pride, not this time. The consent form waited. He signed it. The same motion that once ended their marriage now began his redemption. As the nurses prepared him, he whispered, Tell them, their father's here. The operating room was cold and silent except for the hum of machines. Ethan's body lay still under the lights, pale and fragile. Somewhere in the haze of anesthesia, he drifted into memory. Naomi laughing. 2 boys running through sunlight that never existed. His lips moved, barely sound. Take me instead, he murmured. Just let them live. Dr. Reeves, standing near the monitors, heard the whisper. He looked down, recording it quietly on the chart. Hours passed. Blood and time traded places in fragile rhythm. When it was over, Ethan was barely conscious, his pulse weak but steady. In another room, 2 heart monitors began to rise, steady beats returning to life. Reeves exhaled, whispering to no one, "Your prayer was heard, Mr. Ward." The morning came soft and golden through the hospital blinds. Monitors beeped steady, quiet, alive. Naomi stirred from her chair beside the bed, her head lifting to the faintest sound, a breath. Micah blinked first, eyes fluttering open. Noah's hand moved next, searching in the air until it found his brother's, their fingers intertwined, small and fragile, but certain. Naomi's lips parted. She rose slowly, afraid to believe it was real. Tears gathered before she could stop them. Her boys, their boys, were awake. "Mom," Micah whispered, voice weak but steady. She smiled through tears. "Yes, baby, I'm here." The nurse entered, gasped, and called for the doctor, but Naomi barely heard. She was too busy holding Noah's hand in one of hers, Micah's in the other, feeling both pulses, proof that love had won. She didn't cry loud. She simply let the tears fall, each one a prayer finally answered. 2 days later, Ethan opened his eyes. The room blur-arched, white and humming. His body felt heavy, his throat raw. Then he saw them, 2 boys standing near the door, one smiling shyly, the other holding Naomi's hand. For a heartbeat, he couldn't speak. Micah stepped forward first. "Hi, Dad." The word hit harder than pain ever could. Ethan's eyes filled before he could stop them. "You know who I am?" Noah nodded. "Mom told us, and we know you saved us." He tried to sit up, but Naomi moved closer, pressing his shoulder gently. "Don't," she said softly. "Rest." Ethan reached out, brushing his son's hands with trembling fingers. Their warmth felt like absolution. For the first time in 18 years, he smiled without shame. Redemption didn't sound like applause. It sounded like 2 boys calling him Dad. Weeks later, Naomi returned home to gather old documents for the hospital's legal file. While sorting through an old box, she found a bundle of yellowed envelopes tied with faded ribbon. Each was addressed in handwriting she knew too well, Ethan Ward. Her breath caught. She tore one open. "Naomi, I've looked everywhere. If you see this, please, just tell me you're safe. I don't need forgiveness, only to know you're alive." Letter after letter spilled from the box. Pleas, confessions, unanswered apologies. 18 years of trying. Her younger sister had hidden them, angry at Ethan, wanting to protect her. Naomi sank to her knees, the pages falling around her like ghosts. He had tried to find her. All those years she thought he didn't care. He was searching, just as lost, just as punished. Tears blurred the ink. The past had not lied. But maybe it had misunderstood. That evening, Naomi walked into Ethan's hospital room. He was sitting upright now, pale but alert, reading to Micah and Noah as sunlight touched his face. When the boys stepped out, she stood by the door, a letter in her hand. He looked up, uncertain. "I found these," she said quietly. "I thought you'd stopped caring. You didn't." Ethan's eyes filled. "I never stopped." She moved closer, laying the letter on his blanket. "I can't forget what happened," she said. "I don't know if I can ever love the same way again, but for them, for what we almost lost, I'm willing to try." He didn't speak. He just reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. Weeks later, the Ward family stood outside Magnolia Estate. The same gates that once closed on heartbreak now opened wide. Morning light spilled across the garden, and for the first time, laughter returned to its halls. Ethan leaned toward Naomi, voice quiet. "Welcome home." She smiled, the past softening in her eyes. "And this time," she said, "we're really home." The boys ran ahead, their laughter rising into the sky. Naomi watched them, then looked back at Ethan. No words left to fix, only peace. In the quiet, a truth settled between them. Money can buy comfort, not trust. Fame can raise your head high, but only love can teach you to bow again. And for anyone still carrying old mistakes, remember, sometimes one brave second is enough to rewrite an entire life. If this story touched your heart, stay with us. There are more stories here that remind you it's never too late to begin again.